Warm welcome to you. Today's the opening plenary session of Teach to Reach, the conference running from the 26th until the 28th of January. I am here with Violaine Mitchell and Tove Ryman from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as well as Charlotte Mbu and Minja from the Geneva Learning Foundation to talk about teaching to reach and what that means in practice. Charlotte Mbu is going to ask our first question.
Thank you very much, Reda, and welcome to you, Violaine. A week before the conference, more than 5,000 national and subnational participants had already registered for the Teach to Reach Accelerator Conference. No travel or per diem needed. The recruitment is being led by an enthusiastic, diligent organizing committee of 282 alumni volunteers from 35 countries of the Teach to Reach program. My questions for you are, is there anything surprising for you about this event? What is your message to Teach to Reach participants? This conference is happening, of course, as countries are getting ready to introduce a COVID-19 vaccine. What difference, if any, can such an event make? What does success look like at the end of the 3 days?
Well, first of all, thank you very, very much for inviting me to speak. And I just want to say how inspirational this conference is. I find the energy that has brought this conference together absolutely incredible. I mean, the fact that you have close to 5,000, maybe more, who have joined is just a testament to the need you're meeting and the path you've taken to go forward. I think, and for me, it's also, I just really want to thank each and every one of you for taking time at probably the most unprecedented time in our history, at a time when you're each trying to combat a pandemic, to come together and learn together and share experiences. And this is absolutely extraordinary. And the fact that this is put together by volunteers from 35 countries, wow. I think you asked me, what difference can such an event make and what does success look like at the end of 3 days? And in thinking about your question, there just 4 words came to mind for me, was inspiration, partnership, global action, and local solutions. And I think for me, this is what this conference is actually bringing together, and the 5,000. And I really look forward to learning more, hearing more about where you end up, how you share information, and where we go next. So thank you.
So we are goal-oriented, but we're not on target. That was what your colleague, Oren Levine, also from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, said at Teach to Reach, a face-to-face conference way back in 2015. Then said, business as usual is not going to produce the results we want to see. We know health workers are really key. We need to support them, build their capacity. We hope to reimagine the development and delivery of immunization training that helps build country ownership, focuses on strengthening health systems. Over 5 years later, does this problem statement remain true? What has changed? What, in your view, are the strengths and limitations of what's happened since Teach to Reach?
So I think Teach to Reach launched something fantastic, but I think a lot of what Oren said sadly remains true to this day. We're too traditional in our approaches. We focus on the inputs, we focus on the trainings, not the learnings. We don't focus enough on outcomes. And I think we can collectively do better. And I think if this is one of the things that really comes out of this conference, this will be tremendous. I think we've also, we've got to sort of think harder about how we make training and learning much more successful. And we have to recognize that there's no one size fits all. This really is going to be driven by local solutions and local input. And I'd really like to see us collectively really be open to changing the way we do things. I think this pandemic, which as the horrors of the pandemic actually creates also an environment where we can do things differently and where we can change the way we do things, whether it be the way trainings are conducted, the way they're funded, the way they're organized, the way we focus on outcomes and impact and learning. And I hope this can be the revolution where the training of old is relegated to the garbage bin and we focus on the new and the way that we can really achieve impact in this world. So thank you.
The next question is about the strategy to develop the next generation of leaders. Minja.
So, Violaine, the 2017 framework for immunization training called for recognition of the significance of leaders who advocate and support effective learning. Global partners have recently expressed concern about the effectiveness of current immunization training and learning methods, just as you mentioned. In the recent past, some donors, frustrated by the apparent lack of return on investment in training, apparent due to the dearth and complexity of actual measurement, have been increasingly reluctant to fund training budget lines. Yet every immunization program requires that capacities be strengthened, performance improved, and leadership developed. So my questions to you is, what is the role of global leaders to advocate and support effective learning beyond refusing to fund what has been already funded in the past? What is the strategy to develop the next generation of leaders?
So I think that's a fantastic question. And I think we actually need to go back to the principles too, that training does not equal learning, it does not equal outcomes unless we do it right. So it's being absolutely intentional about how we take things forward. And we absolutely need leaders at all levels of the system. And in the immunization program, we have leaders, whether it be the vaccinator, whether it be the community health worker, whether it be the EPI manager, whether it be the minister, him or herself, and training is just one approach, and training for leadership is just one approach. I think we need to really explore a lot of different approaches here and not just looking at classroom settings. And I think, how do we have more mentoring and shared experience and on-the-job experience, and how do we move things forward and changing the culture of learning? I think we need to really push on that. And I think we need to really be evidence-based and really learn, and we have to evolve and measure our outcomes, and we have to be creative, and we have to try new ways of doing things. And I think most of all, it's not settling for second best. And I think, when we talk about what we're funders refusing to fund, I think we need to put in place what is the best alternative? How do we bring the learning expertise into trainings? How do we test novel structures? And how do we get them out there? And I think we've seen in this pandemic a number of countries do some really extraordinary things in the learning and training space. And I think we need to promote those, and I think we need to learn those and make sure the message gets out as fast as possible. So thank you.
All right, we're going to bring the elephant into the room to talk about COVID-19, and specifically, Charlotte Mbu has a question about which comes first, vaccine manufacturing or developing people to develop vaccines. Charlotte. Oh. Charlotte, you'll have to restart. You're muted, of course.
Oh, sorry, Reda. So I was saying vaccine manufacturing facilities have had to rapidly ramp up their capabilities to produce COVID-19 vaccines. Anna Peterick, writing about Ebola response in the Lancet in February 2015, said, building new treatment centers was an easy task next to training and supervising people to staff them. The primary lesson so far has not been about the need for new response methods, but about human resources and coordination. So my questions are, can the conventional methods and strategies for teaching and learning in immunization get the job done when it comes to getting enough ready at speed and scale to introduce COVID-19 vaccine? Why or why not? What are global partners trying to do differently to support countries to get ready? How is your organization supporting the innovative development by countries of people capabilities for COVID-19 vaccine introduction, given the scale and the complexity of the challenge?
So thank you very, very much, Charlotte. I think, our traditional approach to training and learning is not going to be enough to introduce and combat COVID-19. I think that's clear. And I think it's also clear that it's also forcing us to work in new ways. And we should embrace those and we should challenge ourselves. I think, in-person gatherings where we gather large groups together for a day-long training are no longer possible. But as this conference is proving, we can actually bring more people together and share more information and learn more together than we could in our traditional ways. So let's really embrace what COVID is giving us in this really difficult time. I think, and I think with COVID, we're seeing much more of a demand for these new strategies and approaches. I think we're also seeing a lot of an evolution of more just-in-time videos of job aids through the Immunization Academy and the Open WHO that we should really embrace and share and learn. And I think the Boost platform of immunization professions is providing some really key opportunities and discussions, and it's really focused on peer-to-peer learning, which is where we all learn the most. And I actually really want to thank the Geneva Learning Foundation for convening this opportunity and this conference. It's an unusual venue. It is so exciting to see. I wonder if you're actually setting the pace for how we do things in the future. And I also want to say that I think we need to do much more on this space. And to me, it's not about, is it manufacturing or is it training and learning? At the end of the day, this is all about people, and people matter, and people count, and people need to come first. And the solutions and the training and the learning is going to be, the critical thing is that it actually be at the local level. And hopefully we can really learn the lessons that you're going to help us so that we can be better supporters of the work and learnings that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Violaine Mitchell. We have one last bonus question, and it's about learning leadership and the role of global partners. So something emerged from the 2020 Teach to Reach program, and that was 449 alumni of that program who created something they called the Global Council of Learning Leaders for Immunization. And this is a voluntary group. People are meeting regularly because they want to, and it's bringing together people from all countries and levels of the system. At the Teach to Reach conference, at the closing plenary, the founders of this Global Council are going to share what their vision is for how to lead change and call on others to join them. So we've got a set of questions for you. Will you be listening? I'm guessing that you will. You're going to tell us, what do you think is the potential of such a diverse voluntary group? Should such bottom-up initiative and leadership be supported by global immunization partners? And what would condition your response?
So very simply, I'll go back to what I said at the very beginning. It's utterly inspirational. It's inspirational to me that so many people and talented people have come together, volunteered their time to create the Global Council on Learning Leaders for Immunization. I want to be listening, I want to learn, and I want to be able to be your advocate in changing how we do training and learning.
Thank you so much, Violaine Mitchell from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Thank you so much for being with us at Teach to Reach. It's not too late. If you just heard this and the conference has started and you want to join, you can still do so and still contribute to the amazing sharing, learning, and growing together that is happening over the 3 days of the conference. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Welcome to the Teach to Reach conference. Today is the opening plenary, and with us we're very pleased to have Anuradha Gupta, the Deputy CEO of Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. Welcome, Anuradha. We're going to kick off, dive right in with the first question. As of this Monday, 25th of January, more than 6,000 national and subnational immunization professionals had registered for the Teach to Reach Accelerator Conference. No travel or per diem needed. The recruitment has been led by this super enthusiastic, diligent organizing committee, 282 alumni, volunteers from 35 countries, alumni of the Teach to Reach program. So first questions, is there anything surprising for you about such an event? What is your message to participants in Teach to Reach? And this conference, of course, it's happening as countries are getting ready to introduce COVID-19 vaccines. So for you, what difference could such an event make? What potential do you see? And what would success look like at the end of the 3 days?
So thank you. And I would begin by saying that I am so excited to be able to speak to you all. I truly applaud the idea behind this conference, as health workers are our strongest pillar. And I genuinely believe that investing in innovative ways to upskill health workforce is so critical to reaching every child with immunization. For vaccination to happen, 3 V's must come together: vaccine, vaccinator, and vaccinee. Gavi's portfolio of vaccines has expanded over the years from protecting against 6 infectious diseases in 2001 to 18 today, including COVID vaccines. And these different vaccines, as you know, require new skills, such as intradermal administration, fractional dose, such as IPV, including skills in administering multiple vaccines per session. Health workers need to be trained to understand the different characteristics of vaccines, assure caregivers of their benefits, respond to questions, observe adverse events, and provide relevant information on symptoms that may appear. And I really believe that health worker skills are not just confined to administering the vaccine, but also higher order interpersonal skills, generating confidence in vaccines. Health workers' attitudes play a big role in ensuring that caregivers bring their children back for the full course of vaccination. And we know that stigmatization, rude, discourteous behaviors all play a part in reducing demand for subsequent doses, resulting in dropout of children. Given the strong connection with the community, vaccinators need to be equipped with the right information to dispel common myths and rumors and create trust with caregivers. This is especially important given the mounting vaccine hesitancy that we witness today. And finally, the health workforce must be equipped to identify those who are either zero dose, not having received even a single dose of DTP vaccine, or under-immunized and are therefore bereft of the full course of essential vaccines, and also analyze barriers that prevent access and help surmount them successfully. So I would only say that COVID has highlighted more than ever before that you are our first line of defense. I salute the work you do and really urge you to get this whole community to embark on a quest for knowledge and innovation, because in an ever-changing world, we are counting on you to ensure we leave no one behind with immunization.
Thank you, Anuradha. Charlotte has got now some questions about investment, impact, and strategy.
Thank you, Reda. Data from Gavi alone from 2011 and 2015 shows well over $100 million dedicated to training and workshops. In that period, in Gavi's 2011-2015 business plan, approximately 45 million US dollars out of 540 million US dollars total business plan funding was for workshops and training. In a review in 2020, Gavi again found that another 100 million US dollars had been spent. My questions for you are, how do we know if this is too much or too little? And how is your organization currently measuring the return on this investment? Is there a consensus on how to measure this value?
So Gavi has, as you said, made substantial investments in health workers to all our grants. And that continues to be a priority because we know that it is important to ensure health workers have the relevant technical knowledge, skills, equipment, demand promotion tools, because that is only how we would ensure successful delivery of vaccines. However, we acknowledge that we need to be much more strategic in our investments and encourage innovative ways to enhance the performance of both frontline health workers and managers of immunization programs. A traditional cascading model of face-to-face workshops is expensive and can lack quality assurance and effectiveness. It can also be disruptive as health workers are plucked very routinely and repetitively from facilities. A growing use of mobile phones and increasing comfort with use of new technologies, I believe, open up new opportunities for us to completely rethink our approach to skills enhancement. COVID has indeed provided us an opportunity to accelerate introduction and rollout of digital tools to rapidly scale up health workers' knowledge and skills. And it would be valuable to embed them for routine immunization services going forward. We want to help countries establish systems to monitor and evaluate the impact of their learning by establishing systems for data collection on the effectiveness and appropriateness. And really, as you said, Charlotte, I think health worker learning and performance management approaches go hand in hand. Supervision that supports the health worker, peer-to-peer learning, group problem solving, and self-evaluation are some of the examples that we think are critical to accompany any learning activity. We have promising results with some of our expanded partners in the use of digital technology to support the supervision of vaccinations, and we are rolling this out in many countries, actually. So the aim is to establish mechanisms to monitor not only the impact of any training or learning activity, but also trends in performance of health workers so that we know we are getting bang out of the buck. And I also think that this information can help countries in planning and deploying frontline health workers to areas which are really in most need, because they have a lot of zero-dose children and missed communities.
During Teach to Reach in 2020, we worked with more than 3,000 country-based immunization staff. And first thing, that was the harsh reality we found, is many staff have little or no knowledge of basic instructional design principles, and nor is there any reason why they would. And yet they have to deliver trainings in various forms on a regular basis. We also found that they made up for this lack of instructional design skills through remarkable creativity, invention, relying on what they know about their local context, their indigenous knowledge and expertise to solve problems and to learn to do new things in new ways. And in fact, it sometimes felt as though if training works at all, it's due to that exceptional dedication and leadership of such staff on the ground. So I'm wondering, how does your organization, how does Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, currently capture field-based learning and expertise and apply it to strengthen your organization's support then to countries?
Yeah, so we actually believe a lot in making sure that we encourage human ingenuity, experimentation, local innovation. And as you rightly said, we are investing in capacitation of health workforce and also really innovative tools to do that much more effectively and with higher quality assurance. But at the same time, we also keep our ear to the ground and make sure that we continue to capture lessons from the ground, because we do see very remarkable leadership on the part of health workforce on the ground. And therefore, increasingly, we are actually emphasizing two things. One is differentiation, where we absolutely acknowledge that there is no one-size-fits-all approach here that is going to work for all countries. Countries are different. We need to segment them much more carefully and thoughtfully. And second is contextualization, really a bottom-up approach to planning and encouraging local innovation. So we are working with our partners to make sure that we keep on looking at good examples of leadership from the field and then actually disseminate it and try and replicate it across countries.
Learning leadership is the next question from Charlotte. What is the role of global partners? And pretty much every study in the last 40 years looking at what is the relationship between learning and performance has found that the key is around leadership for learning. Charlotte.
In October 2020, 549 alumni of the Teach to Reach program created what we call the Global Council of Learning Leaders for Immunization. This is a voluntary group bringing together people from all countries and levels of the system. At the Teach to Reach conference, the founders will map out their vision for how to lead change and call on others to join them. I'd like to know, will you be listening? What do you think is the potential of such a diverse voluntary group? Should such bottom-up initiative and leadership be supported by the global immunization partners? What will condition your response?
So as I said, I really think that we need to learn from countries and communities. And there are very effective strategies that a lot of times emanate from the ground. And being respectful of those is an important way forward. But at the same time, I also feel that the role of global leaders is also to encourage and create the right environment for innovation. So in many Gavi-supported countries, we know barriers to technology access have fallen dramatically, as symbolized by the ubiquity of mobile phones and smartphones. But we also see at the same time a widening gap between the availability of digital tools and slow and inefficient health systems. So we have created at Gavi a platform to source and scale innovative solutions. We call it Infuse. The goal is to leverage digital technology to leapfrog current systems and, as I said, to reach those who actually need the protection of vaccines the most. Using mobile learning, we empower vaccinators through comprehensive training to strengthen the efforts of frontline health workers engaged in routine immunization. And we have seen that this approach has been particularly effective during the pandemic, where lockdowns and physical distancing measures require new ways of preparing frontline health workers without relying on in-person instruction. We are also using a digital platform and tools for increased supervision and to enhance EPI performance. And the data reported by supervisors is now available in real time so that managers can review and address the problem rather quickly. Gavi's strategy to develop the next generation of leaders begins with this unique partnership with global, regional, private sector and academic partners. And as I said, we harness the power of digital technology. I'm not sure whether many people have heard about our EPI Leadership and Management Program, which is led by Yale University. And it is in partnership with PATH, the University of Yaoundé in Cameroon, and the University of Global Health Equity in Rwanda. And this has reached national immunization teams from 26 Gavi eligible countries, both Francophone and Anglophone. This team-based online and in-person blended training program actually focuses on building adaptive leadership to solve immunization program challenges amid very complex political and stakeholders landscape. And we have seen that alumni have demonstrated measurable changes in management and leadership competencies. They have strengthened their team-based collaboration and improved immunization program performance. So there are several other initiatives that we are investing in. For example, another example that I can quote is of Gavi's second generation strategic training executive program, STEP, which offers a change management set of tools to solve leadership challenges where transformation and not just improvement is required. So this is focusing on supply chain, and the first generation of this program was presented 13 times and reached about 340 supply chain professionals from 23 countries. So the point that I want to emphasize here is that we cannot get away from this concept of continuous innovation. So I think we keep our perspectives open to see what is coming from the ground. We also group at the global level to push for innovation, but also understand that we cannot stand still, because innovation is a continuous process that needs to happen. So that is being applied to our capacity building programs, where we had the first version of STEP, which was quite effective, but now we are moving on to the next version of STEP. So not really stopping.
Great, thank you, Anuradha. We have one final question, which is the elephant in the room, let's say, which is COVID-19. Vaccine manufacturing facilities have had to obviously ramp up their capabilities to produce the various COVID-19 vaccines. Now, looking back at the Ebola crisis response way back in 2014, 2015, Anna Patrick, writing in The Lancet, made the statement, building new treatment centers was an easy task. She says, next to training and supervising people to staff them. The primary lesson has not been about the need for new response methods, but about human resources and coordination. So the final questions are really, is there a commensurate investment in the development of people capabilities and an investment on the same scale and magnitude as there is in manufacturing and then purchasing vaccines? Is there a risk that if there is not that commensurate investment, bad things could happen if vaccinators at the end of the chain, but everyone else along that chain is not supported at the same level and in very compelling, powerful ways, in the same ways that an investment is being made in manufacturing and production and purchasing of vaccines?
So as I said right in the beginning, to me, vaccinators and the role that workforce plays is extremely important as the vaccines are, and also the vaccinees are. So of course, on the one hand, we are coming together as a global community to ramp up the production and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. On the other hand, we are also trying to work with governments to make sure that the high-risk populations are catalogued properly, because if we don't target these vaccines thoughtfully, then clearly in a scarce supply situation, the vaccines could be used on a population which is not the right priority population, and then you don't get full benefit out of these vaccines. But the third and very important link is the vaccinator and the health workforce. So, and if we do not make a commensurate investments in vaccinators or workforce, then clearly we would not be able to see the kind of results that we are hoping for. And some of these products really are complex, because if you look at Pfizer product, for example, that requires, new kind of skills that I was alluding to in my first response. So the syringes are different, and there are new skills that the health workforce would require. And therefore, and then we have the new protocols which are imposed by COVID-19 restrictions. So really the health, if we underinvest in health workforce at this point, we would do it at our own peril. And therefore, so far as Gavi is concerned, investing in capacitation of health workforce and constantly upskilling their skills is something that is a top priority for us. So when the COVID-19 pandemic was unfolding very rapidly, we actually gave an opportunity to Gavi supported countries to reprogram their health strengthening support. And actually in that, capacitation of health workforce was a very big component of reprogramming. And I can assure you that going forward, this is something that we want to be able to actually keep our eye on constantly and make sure that we do not under provide for this very critical focus. And as I said, one is the health workforce and their skills, the frontline health workers. But the second aspect is investing in supervision, because if supervision doesn't happen or it is not effective, or we do not equip the supervisors with proper tools, because it's not just about monitoring, it is about supportive supervision. And unless, we have effective supervision and we are getting data in real time to understand where are the gaps that we need to actually step up to fill, I think, we would fall short of our ambition and targets. So at Gavi, we have this as a very clear priority.
Thank you so much, Anuradha Gupta from Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance at the Teach to Reach Accelerator Conference. It's not too late. You can still join us. Go to the Learning.Foundation website and click here to secure your seat. Thank you, Anuradha, and thank you, Charlotte Mbu, for this interview. Look forward to and hoping you will be listening in to the voices from countries. That will be more than 6,000 participants registered for this conference to look at how to reach the unreached for immunization and specifically for COVID-19 vaccine introduction. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Pleasure.
Warm welcome on the occasion of the opening ceremony of the Teach to Reach Accelerator Conference. We are together with Kate OBrien. Dr. OBrien is the Director of the Immunization, Vaccines and Biologicals Department at the World Health Organization headquarters. A warm welcome to you, Kate.
I'm delighted to be with you. Thank you.
Great. And with me as well, of course, are Charlotte Mbu and Minja from the Geneva Learning Foundation. So we're here to talk really about the Teach to Reach Accelerator Conference agenda. And my first question for you, Kate, is the following. So as of Monday, 18th January, so almost more than a week ago, there were already 4,226 national and subnational immunization professionals who had registered for the Teach to Reach Accelerator Conference. No travel, no per diem needed. So the recruitment has been led by a really enthusiastic, diligent organizing committee, 282 alumni of the Teach to Reach program from 35 countries. So my first set of questions is, what's your message to Teach to Reach participants? This conference is happening, of course, as countries are getting ready to introduce COVID-19 vaccine. What difference, if any, can such an event make? What would success look like at the end of the 3 days for you? And is there anything surprising for you about the event?
Well, these are great questions. And first of all, it's not just that countries are getting ready to introduce COVID-19 vaccines. We're in country introduction now. So there are 50 countries that have introduced COVID vaccines, and we are going to rapidly be going to, we hope, every single country having introduced vaccine in the next few months. So one of the things that I think is really surprising about this event, and really in a very, very optimistic way, is this is basically about crowdsourcing people who want to know, people who are wanting to learn, wanting to be leaders. And this is exactly where the energy and the initiative and that sort of thrust that we need in order to be successful on the COVID vaccines, and frankly on all vaccines, is going to come from. It's from that motivated group of people. It's all of you who are saying, I want to be in this space of being ready and having all the tools at hand to know what we should be doing and how we're going to get there and what can I actually contribute to this. So I think what's surprising about this is how successful it's been already, and the fact that this is the new model of teaching and learning. Which is, it doesn't need for us to physically be in spaces. If that's going to be our requirement, then I think we've already kind of lost the game before we've even started. I think learning, and especially in immunization learning and engaging with communities, has got to be so dynamic, because every situation has a local feel to it, has a community feel to it, has an influence of our local environment. And so we really, really need these kinds of teaching opportunities and teaching platforms so that we can all keep learning together, and we're actually leveraging and learning as things are happening, and we can keep adapting. So I think it's that really flexible, agile kind of learning approach where we're pulling the lessons from where the action is really happening. It's coming from where immunization programs are being deployed. And it's not about people who are sitting in Geneva or Seattle or frankly, any of the other capitals really around the world. It's the lessons and learning that is coming from people who are working in the community, because that's where vaccination actually happens.
Thank you so much, Kate OBrien from WHO. Now, our second question is from Charlotte Mbu. Charlotte?
Thank you very much, Reda. The 2017 framework for immunization training called for recognition of the significance of leaders who advocate and support effective learning. Global partners have recently expressed concern about the effectiveness of current immunization training and learning methods. In the recent past, some donors, frustrated by the apparent lack of return on investment in training, apparent due to the depth and complexity of actual measurement, have been increasingly reluctant to fundraising training budget lines. Yet every immunization program requires that capacities be strengthened, performance improved, and leadership developed. My questions for you, Kate, are: what then is the role of global leaders to advocate and support effective learning? Beyond refusing to fund what has been funded in the past, what is the strategy to develop the next generation of leaders?
So I think really the key thing here is effective learning. And I think where we've come from on sort of how learning happens and how training happens has been a really sort of cascading model of train the trainer and expect learning to sort of distribute out. And I think we're in a totally different place about how effective learning happens. Adults don't mostly learn in that way. Adults learn by doing, and adults learn by doing things that are relevant to what they have to do on a day-to-day basis to be successful in their positions, in their jobs. And so I think we've taken learning from a position of how, frankly, how we probably mostly learned in classrooms and were taught as children, as adolescents, and as early adults, and really turning that on its head. For the learning has to really be about and delivered in a way and sourced in a way that is totally relevant for what we as adults do on a day-to-day basis. Unless it matters to us, unless it's something that helps us and makes us more efficient, more effective in what we do, we're just really not interested. And I think that that's true of all of us. So I think it's the sort of framework for immunization training and the responses from global partners about the concerns they have on effectiveness of immunization training and learning methods is well founded. That's not to say that people don't get anything out of those kinds of learning environments, but I think the measurements have been very little is retained and very little of it actually goes into practice. And that's the purpose, of course, of training, is to make sure that our practice and our impact for what we're doing is stronger than it was before we trained. So I think where the strategy to develop the next generation of leaders really sits is a dispersive model. That it's not about one style of training. It's not about going to 3-day workshops in person, sitting in a classroom of some sort or in a conference room, and then leaving and sort of distributing those lessons to other layers. It's really a different strategy about, first of all, identifying people who can be leaders. And leadership, to me, comes from many, many different places. Leadership is not just about the title that you have in the position that you're in. It's about the way that you work, and it's about the way that you take on the responsibility to really drive forward the impact of the work that you're doing, whether you have a title of a management leader or a leader. So I think this is the other component. It's not only how we train, it's about also what we define leadership to be. And there is a leadership role for everybody in the system. And that really is, I think, the sort of second concept about training leaders is, where does that leadership come from? And recognizing that that really has to be at the most local level, then the most provincial, state level, across all organizations, that leadership is not strictly defined as a sort of hierarchy in a structure. I think leadership is much more about our own individual leadership of taking charge and being responsible for the things that we're driving forward. So I think it's also this idea of what is the definition of leadership, and is it conferred only on some people, or is it taken up and conferred to all people who are we're talking specifically here in the immunization space, to drive towards the impact. And then I think the third thing about leadership, and especially, again, in the immunization space, is for everybody to understand their role in getting to the impact that has been set for vaccines and for good health and well-being of vaccines. And I think unless you know what you're all driving towards, it's really hard to exert that leadership that is in a coherent and aligned and really sort of an integrated way. So I think those are some of the concepts and some of the ideas around immunization training, and especially identifying the next generation of leaders. I really think that the next generation of leaders is really about young people, because I think we really see the impact of family decisions, community decisions, and the confidence and belief in vaccines is really just completely immersed and coming from that sort of level. It's not about anymore. It's certainly supportive, but it's not entirely about governments or health departments sort of saying this is how the program is going to work. I really think the leadership is about the parents of tomorrow, about the workers of tomorrow who will be setting directions of programs, and so that's really about young people.
Thank you, Kate OBrien, for the first part of the interview for the Teach to Reach Accelerator Conference. The next question is going to come from Minja from the Geneva Learning Foundation, who has a question for you about the need to teach critical thinking, adaptation, and leading change at all levels. Ja?
Thank you, Rita, and thank you, Kate. My question is closely related to what you just said, actually. So in the COVID-19 Peer Hub, more than 700 participants developed context-specific action plans to keep immunization services going in their own context. François Gas, who coached participants 4 times per week during those exercises, he observed that many from the district and the health facilities levels were probably doing action planning for the first time. Current EPI configuration follows really a top-down management practice. The national team plans, and then the plan is carried out in the district. This may have been very effective in the past. However, we have found that this misses the need for adapting plans and figuring out exactly how to execute them. And this also requires analytical and critical thinking skills, as well as skills to make progress within complex organizational setups. It's even more critical when it comes to urban inequity, zero-dose communities, or COVID-19 vaccine introduction. Yet training is also top-down, and people from the so-called lower levels usually receive at best, as you said, cascade training or some kind of e-learning that gives them information, but not skills. So my question to you, Kate, is what is the relationship between empowered subnational staff and greater critical thinking and adaptation? How does your organization see the role of learning and leadership in this context?
So I just love this question because it really hits the nail on the head. That we really think that where we need to be focusing is at the most local level of the immunization program. That is where this critical thinking is needed, the adaptation, the leading change at that level. Because although we can provide information, and you really emphasize that training in the past has been very much about information sharing and then an expectation that that information would be deployed, not only cascaded, but would be deployed. But we can't train for every scenario of everything that's going to happen in an immunization program. So there are for sure, points of information that are important and needed, but what's really going to deploy and deliver the impact of vaccine programs in ways that we haven't seen before, especially in these hard to reach settings or in communities where there is mistrust, or in communities that are mobile, in communities that are really dynamic, is that the program itself, and that means people. It's the program doesn't exist without the people, but the people who are working in the program at that most local level have to be able to adapt, to be agile, to innovate things that will work in that particular setting with those leaders in the community, with those families, with that living circumstance. And so that means we can't create scenarios or information that is going to cover every situation. What it really needs is for people to feel like they have the authority and are empowered to lead that change in their community, in their program at the most local level, understanding what the goal is, what the targets are. And certainly we have to recognize that the immunization program is a very technical program. So there are some critical elements of the immunization program that do have to be deployed with fidelity. They have to be deployed in the way that they need to be deployed so that we have vaccines that are potent vaccines, that they actually work, that they're delivered safely, that we're monitoring the supply of vaccines and assuring that we have those commodities available when and where people seek them. And then taking those critical things that really can't be compromised and adapting all around that. So, where could the clinic be? What could the hours be? Are there ways of making it really a human-centered design for the people who we're really trying to serve through the immunization program? And that can't be done through a top-down model. we can help to provide some context, we can help to provide tools, we can help to provide a way of thinking and a way of critically adapting a program to identify in real time solutions that are needed for the roadblocks that are happening. And those roadblocks are dynamic. It's not the same roadblock day in, day out. This week, or this month's roadblock may be quite different from something that's happening a month from now, 2 or 3 months from now. So what I really see is this relationship between sort of really empowering the staff and not just the staff, but the partners that are in the space at the most local community level. And ideally, it's about the clinic worker who understands and really takes on board as the goal of every day's work is to actually get the impact that the entire program is driving towards, and how their part in that clinic, serving those people in that community, is contributing to actually getting to the subnational goals or the national goals, and ultimately up towards the direction that the world wants immunization programs to go for impact, so that everybody, everywhere, has the benefit of these vaccines when and where and how they need it. And so that's how we see the sort of leadership as being a much more distributive leadership model, and really putting decision-making, authority for decision-making, and the adaptation for making the changes that are needed at the most local level, which is where it has to be, day in and day out.
Thank you, Kate OBrien. We've got 3 questions left for this plenary interview, and the next one builds on what a lot of what you've been sharing. And during Teach to Reach, during the Teach to Reach program in 2020, we worked with more than 3,000 country-based immunization staff. And to be honest, we found that many staff had little or no knowledge of even the basic instructional design principles for how to develop effective training. However, we also found that they made up for this through remarkable creativity, invention, relying on what they know that no one else does about their context, that indigenous knowledge and expertise, and using that to solve problems and to figure out how to achieve the training objectives and to learn to do new things in new ways. In fact, it's sometimes felt as though if training works at all, it's actually due to the exceptional dedication and leadership of such staff. So how does your organization currently capture that field-based learning, that local expertise, and apply it to strengthen the support that your organization then supports back to countries? Of course, we're talking about double loop learning.
Yeah, so learning is an iterative entity. It's really about implementing something, seeing whether it works, adapting it to fix the things that didn't work, and then turning the wheel on that. Again, seeing if that works, measuring. So there are a couple of things I really want to focus on in your question here. The first is you have to know what works and what doesn't work. And that is an ongoing real-time quality improvement process. And so what's really relevant here is that the capacity of staff to actually collect information. It could be quantitative information, it could be qualitative information, but to do it in a way that is a bit more systematic than anecdotes of something that happened or didn't happen. So I think one of the elements here is also, as we think about training, learning, and leadership, that focusing on the idea that there is a constant iterative loop that we go through to pull in information about what's working, solution around how to fix the issues that are broken or are not ideal, not optimal, deploy them, and then learn again. So I think that's really one of the key sort of elements here. And you referred to sort of the double loop of learning. I think the other thing is that the locus of learning it has to be at the point where the interventions are happening, where the implementation of the program is happening. Now, the implementation of the program also happens at all levels. Of course, there's a program at the national level, and so I'm not saying that learning only happens or innovating only happens at the most local level, but I think where we've come from and where we're really changing the way that teaching and learning happens is again, putting this across all levels of the program and endorsing, really supporting. So one of the ways that at WHO that we're doing that is by the tools of learning that are now fully accessible to, broad numbers of people. We've just stood up, for instance, some trainings, again, for all levels of people on COVID vaccines. And in a couple of weeks, I've had 25,000 people who have participated through those experiential lessons. Another thing that I think is really an important tool that we have is simulation exercises, that you don't have to wait until the program is deploying or is out there in its real form. There are ways that we can simulate parts of programs and bring people together across levels, again, using these virtual formats, which was more difficult to do when we were trying to do in-person learning, to really put people of all different levels, meaning the national level, the regional level, the subnational level, the most local level, because there are so many things where one decision impacts another decision. And I think really seeing this much more as a system and not as these sort of tiered, almost like a layer cake, because so much of what happens in one level impacts another level.
Thank you, Kate OBrien from the World Health Organization. We are at the Teach to Reach Accelerator Conference and opening this 3-day event. Today we have, in fact, a key question that is going to come from Charlotte Mbu about learning leadership and the role of global partners. Charlotte?
Thank you, Reda. In October 2020, 549 alumni of the Teach to Reach program created the Global Council of Learning Leaders for Immunization. This is a voluntary group bringing together people from all countries and levels of the system. At the Teach to Reach conference, the founders will map out their vision for how to lead change and call on others to join them. So I would like to find out from you, Kate, will you be listening? What do you think is the potential of such a diverse voluntary group? Should such bottom-up initiatives and leadership be supported by global immunization partners? What will condition your response?
Well, will I be listening? You bet I'll be listening. And if I can't listen at the moment when it's being shared, I will certainly be listening to the recording of it. I think you asked a specific question, and let me say why I'll be listening, and because it relates to the specific question you asked about having a diverse and voluntary group. And I think there are two words in there that are that really resonate. The first is that it's a voluntary group. So by definition, this is a group of people who are engaged, who want to have an impact, who are committing their own personal time in a voluntary way to participate. And there's nobody more valuable in terms of voice, in terms of experience, than people who are volunteering their time, because it fundamentally shows their commitment to what they're doing. The other word is diverse. And I think what goes without saying, but it is important to say, and therefore I will say it, is that talent comes from anywhere and everywhere. And diversity means we're drawing on the best range of talent possible anywhere in the world and everywhere in the world. When we don't have diversity, we are shutting off lines of experience that are real lines of experience for communities, families, people that make a real difference. And so we're constraining and limiting what is possible. It's really, to me, it's only possible to get to the goals that the world has set and that every community is setting if we're drawing on every piece of talent and every piece of insight and every piece of capacity to really get to those goals, because we would be there already if it was easy, and it's not easy. So the term of bottom-up initiative, I wish we had a better term for that. And I guess I like the idea of sort of, distributive initiatives. I don't like the sort of hierarchy about this is the bottom and this is the top. It has a certain sort of power element to me. And I just want to tell a little anecdote. In the office that I have, I really insisted on having a round conference table in the office as opposed to a rectangular table. And it's important to me because I think leadership is about sitting around a table with a group of people and drawing the best ideas from everybody who's sitting around that table, wherever they come from, that it doesn't really matter what your specific title is or what your role is. And so I guess I kind of like round leadership or round initiatives. And I think that's what is really the component that the immunization partnership is about, is looking outward and pulling in every good idea that is out there that can actually make a difference. So my response to the ideas that will come from this is unconditional, which is if it's a good idea that can be deployed and that can make a difference, we should be driving at implementing it and making it as easy as possible for every community, every country, every program, every component of this immunization ecosystem to draw on the ideas and implement them. The urgency to get to impact is just so obvious to all of us. And especially in this COVID time, when we're seeing backsliding of the immunization programs, challenges restanding them up, large numbers of people who have gone unimmunized because of the pause in the program, outbreaks that are waiting to happen unless we respond, and of course, this massive unprecedented challenge of deploying COVID vaccines in every country around the world to hundreds of millions, billions of people, and doing it in a time frame that has never been achieved before. So we have our work cut out for us, and there is no place in this immunization world right now for putting up boundaries or barriers. The place we need to be in is everybody jumping in the boat, sticking their oar in the water, and rowing in the same direction that everybody else is rowing in. Anybody can pick up an oar and start rowing. And I think that's what I keep sort of talking about in terms of leadership, is that we each have a leadership role in us. And that's where I think the global partners need to be supporting, is endorsing, engaging, and listening to the ideas that are coming through so they can be distributed further to anywhere and everywhere where those ideas are needed, and they're embedded in the design and the planning for programs.
We're talking with Dr. Kate OBrien, Director of Immunization, Vaccines and Biologicals at the World Health Organization. We have saved, I can't say the best for last, but our final question is the elephant in the room, the COVID-19 vaccine. So vaccine manufacturing facilities, there's been a lot of investment, obviously, in manufacturing specifically for COVID vaccine to rapidly get build up the capabilities needed to successfully introduce vaccines. Now, Anna Patrick, writing about Ebola response in The Lancet a long time ago in February 2015, said, building new treatment centers was an easy task, she says, next to training and supervising people to staff them. The primary lesson so far has not been about the need for new response methods, but about human resources and coordination. So here are my questions for you, Kate OBrien. Can the conventional methods and strategies for teaching and learning in immunization get the job done? You've already answered that several times, but it'd be good to hear that reiterated side by side with the commensurate investments in vaccine manufacturing facilities. Is it lopsided or not? And when it comes to getting enough people ready at speed and scale to introduce COVID-19 vaccine, what does that look like? What are global partners trying to do differently to support countries to get ready? And how is your organization supporting that innovative development by countries of people capabilities for COVID-19 vaccine introduction, given the scope, the scale, and the complexity of the challenge?
Yeah, having COVID vaccines, a good analogy was made by somebody that having COVID vaccines is like getting to the base camp of Mount Everest. But actually vaccinating people, and vaccinating people in the scale and dimension that needs to happen in order to crush this pandemic is really the task of getting to the peak of Everest. In order for that to happen, what's really clear is it's not business as usual. We don't have enough people in any country around the world to be deploying the vaccines that are already starting to be deployed and are at our doorstep for many countries. There aren't enough people who work in the immunization program if we're only going to lean on people in the immunization program to actually deploy these vaccines. We have to pull out all the stops for how to get these vaccines as quickly as possible to as many people as possible in the priority that they're needed. And so what that really means to be at speed, scale, to introduce is we have to do some things differently here. We're already hearing about organizations, pharmacies, pharmacists deploying vaccines, looking at the number of countries that allow for that and expanding, really encouraging countries to consider what they need to do in order to allow for other health workers to be able to deploy vaccines. We have to be able to train people quickly and train them in the essential things. That's not going to happen if we stick with our usual training methods. So what the Teach to Reach program is really critical for is really diversifying our way of thinking about how we train. How we assure that people have ongoing engagement in training, that they have ongoing development of capabilities for COVID-19 vaccines. And what we've seen in COVID-19 is if you are flat-footed in this pandemic, you're already, you've already kind of lost the game on this. For COVID-19 vaccines, this is going to be extremely dynamic. And we are seeing that in high-income countries especially already, that if you have designed a program and that's the only way that you can deliver the program, that's not going to work. There are just too many lessons that are being learned, especially according to different vaccine platforms, different communities of prioritization that need to be vaccinated. So everybody in this enterprise has got to be able to scale, has got to be able to deal with complexity, has got to be able to do personal, local innovation to actually overcome the challenges, but doing that in the context of some pretty technical specifications to assure that the vaccines are getting where they need to be into the arms of people and doing so with the protection of the vaccines themselves. So what I really think is that we are in an unprecedented time, and it takes unprecedented methods and unprecedented innovation in order to be successful. And the way that innovation happens is by individuals in every part of the system who are committed to the goal and who are committed to playing their part to solve a problem and to take the initiative to solve the problem and to offer the solutions out in ways that they can be deployed. And again, this iteration of measurement and redoing something, introducing something else if it's not working. So we're supporting innovative development by countries in terms of tools that people can use. There are electronic tools that we have not deployed in nearly enough places to really ease the task that people have in front of them so that you have information in your hands. The second is giving people the authority and the endorsement to be solution providers, to be taking that leadership role and creating ideas that can actually be implemented in the community, in the clinic, in the, wherever people are in that system. And then I think the third thing is really about inviting people in. If we stay as a sort of seen as a technical a technical enterprise, a technical program that doesn't have a place or room for a broad range of partners, volunteers, and organizations, then again, I think we've lost where we need to be. So this creates complexity, but I think there is a way of organizing that complexity when we're all focused on the goal and the task, and being as clear as we can what that goal is. And I think it's clear for COVID-19 vaccines. The goal is to deploy safe and effective and quality vaccines as quickly as possible to those who need them the most. And so coming from that, I think it's really clear what people need to do. And everything you do during the day, if it's directed at that, then innovating around it to make it as seamless, as simple, and as effective as possible, and as sharing those ideas so they can be implemented elsewhere, I think is where we need to be in order to be successful.
Thank you, Kate OBrien. Kate OBrien is, of course, the Director of the Immunization, Vaccines and Biologicals Department at the World Health Organization. If you are not yet at the Teach to Reach conference, you can still get your ticket and join the conference that is taking place from the 26th to the 28th of January. Thank you, Kate OBrien, as well as my colleagues Minja and Charlotte and Boo from the Geneva Learning Foundation. Join us, and we look forward to further dialogue throughout the 3 days of the conference around these critical issues for immunization staff everywhere. Of course, tackling right now the challenge not only of reaching zero-dose communities, of achieving the global goals, but also of introducing the COVID-19 vaccine to protect the most vulnerable and those who need it most. Thank you once again. Look forward to further dialogue throughout the 3 days of the conference. Thank you and goodbye. Warm welcome to you. Today's the opening plenary session of Teach to Reach, the conference running from the 26th until the